God gives Noah instruction to go forth out of the ark. And while doing that, he should bring forth all of the animals. And then we're told that Noah and the animals was brought forth, right? So go forth, then bring forth, then brought forth, right? More key vocabulary from Genesis chapter 1. Noah's recreation. Lastly, the story of the flood is a story of uncreation, but to leave it there, it's only half the story, low-key. After every uncreation, we read it's also a pivotal moment for a rebirth or a new creation, right? Because that is the whole story of the Bible from the beginning. God brought life out of death. Then when you choose death, he figured out how to bring life and a new thing out of that death. Right? And we're going to find that the stories in the Bible from Genesis to Malachi for sure, I'm still debating the New Testament, are replays of how we choose death and God weaves it together to bring you life or to bring new life. And you would say it's like 100,000 stories in the Bible out of 32 books in the Old Testament. And I would say, yes, the Bible explores every single angle of how we might be in a position to choose death. And when we do, God figures out how to weave it together and bring life out of the other side of our failure, usually through a remnant, right? Shout out to everybody who's been reading their Bibles, who are already having all type of connections going off. Your brain snap seeds electrified, right? I understand the feeling. God bless your excitement. So let's read the final step of uncreation, which is recreation, right? Not recreation, recreation. Right. And that's Genesis 8:1. And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth and the waters assuaged. Right. God made that wind to pass over, which is another clue to let us know in a different way, according to chapter 1, that we in the beginning of starting over again. Right. Remember our hashtag memory verse. Genesis 1:2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved on the waters. Right? Chapter 1, God bring forth the land and everything in it in a cycle of 6 days. And then on the 7th day, he rests. And then when the earth is finished being brought forth out of the water this time, chapter 8:4, the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. Come on, y'all. That's real cute coincidence, right? The ark rested in the 7th month, and then not the 16th, but the 17th day, right? And 10 and 7 is how you say it in most languages, right? We English speakers, so I go over our head. But it's 10 and 7. Those numbers 10 and 7 ought to be remembered before we get out of chapter 1. You might know that the 7th month is a significant month already from Leviticus, but from chapter 1 and 2 is making sure you understand. This is a repetition type story you've entered into. Then in verses 8-14, Noah sends out a dove in a series of 7s, and then the dry land appears, or can be seen. Then God gives Noah instruction to go forth out of the ark, and while doing that, he should bring forth all of the animals. And then we're told that Noah and the animals was brought forth, right? So go forth, then bring forth, then brought forth, right? More key vocabulary from Genesis chapter 1. We haven't gotten to all the vocabulary because we haven't made it past verse 2. But it's perfectly fine. If you follow the channel, then you know you should be reading chapter 1, chapter 2 daily, if not chapter 1 through 11. And so all through chapter 1, bring forth is the verbiage used about how the plants come out of the ground and how the animals come out of the ground. So Noah and his children and their wives are with the animals, are being depicted as coming out of the ark to be fruitful and multiply on the dry land, though. Very similar to trees. Fruit trees, right? That's a beautiful analogy. I love the way it flipped. Even in English, it still makes perfect sense. Right? Bloody marvelous. And then, if you've been studying Genesis chapter 1 all the way to 3, then you already know what's going to happen next with Noah. But Adam and Eve was in the garden with the tree, ate the fruit, found out they was naked. Noah plants a garden or a vineyard at the tree, drinks the fruit, and then becomes naked. Adam had 3 sons. Noah had 3 sons. Anyway, we don't have all day. Lastly, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In verse 2, the waters covered the earth. Like a blank canvas, God was able to create life out of nothing. Now, if you've been following me the last couple of years, then you know that I promote the sidestepping of most of our cultural debates around Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2. I will, however, bring one of our cultural 21st century debates about chapter 7 and chapter 8 up here and now. And the debate is whether or not the entire world flooded globally, or whether the flood was a regional flood that received so much water that the mountains in that area was somehow covered. And the only reason I allow such a scientific question inside of our conversation is to make sure that everybody watching from here on out understands the perspective here at Study the Bible, Not the Sermon, which is the description of Noah's flood is neither describing a local flood nor describing a global flood. It is describing the collapse of the cosmos, the destruction of the universe. And the Spirit of God was in chapter 1 hovering over the waters in the creation, just like it was in chapter 8. The wind making the waters assuage in order for new creation. Hopefully that makes sense in a series of videos less than 15 minutes each. I'll try to fill in more blank spaces and answer all the questions as we go along, whether you leave them in the comments or you leave them in my email, or whether you just know somebody close to me and they can repeat your words. Till next week, we up.